right, after you've poured up your bleach tray and it's all set, then you're gonna peel it out of the impression, and then you're gonna soak it in water for a good 5 minutes before you start trimming it. Now it's been soaking for 5 minutes. You're gonna wear your PPE. Well, you don't have to wear your mask, but you do need to wear glasses for this, and your hair needs to be pulled back. And remember to turn the water on. The knob needs to be parallel with the hose. That means the water's on, it's plugged in, and then there's a switch back here to turn it on. So we'll just flip it on here. And then to control how much, you can't hear the water running. To control it, you're gonna turn this knob until you hear water running. And now you can see that trimmer is wet now, and you can kind of hear the water flowing through there. You don't want it so it's dripping. That's too much water. Just enough to keep that trimmer wet. Okay, so now you got your model here. You're gonna always keep it flat on the table. Never put it against the trimmer loosely. It needs to be stable on the table here. And so we're going to trim off the back end until it comes right up to those molars. I forgot to mention that you're not gonna wear gloves. You don't want it to get sucked in. Okay, now I'm gonna do this part. We're gonna trim this until it's a U shape, so it's actually gonna cut this entire pallet out. The reason I cut the back side off first is so it will sit flat on the table without rocking on me. And remember to keep your fingers away. You're just barely holding the teeth on there. You can just push your fingers on the occlusal surface of those teeth and then put your pressure on there. And push it until it completely cuts away that pallet. If you move it side to side, it helps it trim it a little bit faster. As you can see, it's starting to trim away that excess around the edges that we don't want anymore. Okay, so that's about how much I want to take off of the top of the model. Now I'm going to trim off the parts that stick out. If there's any parts that stick out on the edges, then I'm going to just smooth that up. Get out of the way. Be really careful when you come around the front that you don't ever hit the front of those teeth with the trimmer. If you feel like you're getting too close, then we can always use a lab knife to trim off the extra too. So you can see that there's still some there, but if I kept going straight at it, I would hit those front teeth. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can hold it at an angle and trim off the front. Or you could use a lab knife and trim off it. And do the corners. We're okay. Will you grab me a lab knife? Okay, if there's any little rough edges, you can use a lab knife just to smooth those edges off. Okay, so now we don't have any sharp edges. It has a nice, the palette is completely gone. So that's what we're looking for when we trim for our bleach tray. We still need to touch it up with a lab scaler because there's extra little bumps in here that we need to clean up with a scaler. I'll show you that. Okay, so after you're done with all the trimming, we're just going to do a little touch up with the scaler and pop off any extra little bumps that might be on there that's not really a part of their mouth. Especially along the gingival margin, you want to have that a nice clean margin there so that the tray fits just right. Okay, once you feel like you've got it pretty well cleaned up, then you're gonna rinse it off. And then if there's any little air bubbles, I'll show you how to fill in those air bubbles. Okay, so after you've already touched everything up, you've scaled everything off, and it's still a little bit wet from rinsing it, then you can put it in your toaster oven to dry it because we're gonna put blockout material on there. So we're gonna put it in there and turn it to medium toast, and it takes about 3 minutes. Okay, so when the time is up, it'll ding. But remember, this is really hot, so you want to be careful not to put anything on top of it, not to touch it with your bare hands. So we'll just use a paper towel to pull it out, and then you'll set it to the side to let it cool before we do anything with it. Okay, so now that it has cooled, we're gonna put our block-out material on there, and that's just to fill in any irregularities and make a little bit of a reservoir for the bleach to sit in the bleach trays. So you can just start on the premolars because most people's molars don't show in their smile. So we're just gonna do premolar to premolar. We're just gonna do a tiny little line across the front of the teeth. And then you're going to use a gloved finger to rub it in. And be careful not to get it on the gingival margin. Just smooth it in there. It doesn't have to be very big at all. And then when you pull your finger off of it, make sure that you don't leave any little bumps or projections, because then they'll fill that in their bleach tray. Okay, so now it's all nice and smooth on there. And then you'll do your other arch as well, the same way. And then we're gonna put them both in the triad machine on the table. And make sure the power is on in the back. You'll close the door. Remember, it's already set to 1 minute. You'll turn on the table and then on the curing light. It'll go around for 1 minute. When the light turns off, that means it's done. Okay, so now that it's done, you can turn off the table and the curing light, open it up. Remember, you want to leave the fan running, so don't turn the power off for at least another minute. We want to cool down that bulb. Okay, so now we're coming over here to the vacuum former. We're gonna grab our bleach tray material. Some bleach tray materials are different than others. This one has a really smooth side, and then the other side is not so smooth. The really smooth side is gonna be up. That's the side that their tongue is going to touch. The not so smooth side is the part that's gonna go down over their teeth. Okay, so with the vacuum former, you're gonna lift up this top part of the table. Make sure that all four corners and edges are on the rubber gasket so it doesn't slide off. Put it on there nice and even, and then you're gonna pull down this lever and latch it under there so it's nice and tight. And then with this table, you're gonna lift it up and just slightly finger tighten this knob back here. You don't want to like crank it down too tight, because when it's time to lower it down, then you want to be able to loosen it quickly and pull it down. So you're gonna just barely finger tighten it. Now you're gonna place we're gonna do both arches. We're gonna do the maxillary arch and the mandibular arch. Okay, so now that you have the tray up, you're gonna place your arches on it. We're gonna do both arches at the same time. So you have your maxillary arch and your mandibular arch in there. You're gonna stagger them just a little bit so they're not right next to each other. And make sure that they're on the inside of all those little holes, but not too close to each other. So once you have it placed in there correctly, then you can move the heating element over, and you're going to turn the heat on. The heat on is to the left. I always think towards the light is the heat, then to the right is going to be the vacuum. So towards the light is the heat. And the first time you use it, it's going to take a while for it to heat up, about 2 or 3 minutes. But if everybody in the lab is using it, it's going to heat up really quickly. So you want to keep your eye on it and not walk away. What we're looking for, we're going to watch the impression or the bleach tray material to droop. And the droop needs to come down about to this little gold ring down here is what we're looking for. So once we have that drooping down to that gold ring, then we're gonna move the heat to the side, we're gonna turn the vacuum on, and we're gonna lower it down. And we'll leave that vacuum going on for about 30 seconds. So as we watch, it's kind of fun to watch because it will actually at first suck up and then start to droop. And we're watching it droop. Never walk away from it. Once it starts to droop to the right measurement, then we're gonna pull it down. Turn the suction on and pull it down. You see it starting to droop. Okay, we're just about there. Right there, you can see it drooping. Remove the heat. We're going to turn the vacuum on. Okay, after it vacuums for about 20-30 seconds, then you'll lift up this top, and then you're carefully gonna peel it off of there. Never touch it with your fingers, or because it's still really soft and warm, it'll leave your fingerprints on the bleach tray. So you don't want to touch the teeth with your fingers. You just want to peel it up by the edges and very carefully pull it up, because it is still really soft and it could stick to itself. If you peel it up and fold it over, then it could stick to itself. So you want to be careful the way you peel it off of there. And then and just set it to the side until it's completely cooled. You don't want to pull the stone models out of the bleach tray while it's still warm, or else it'll start to deform the bleach tray. So wait till it's completely cooled before you work with it. You can run it under cold water to cool it down even faster if you wanted to.